So now it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Jeff Moffa, President and CEO of Auros Knowledge Systems. He'll be laying the foundation for Knowledgeware, the big and expanding picture. So take it away, Jeff.
Amy, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction and getting us all going. As Amy said, I will be talking about the big and expanding picture of Knowledgeware. And to get us going, though, a little bit about the conference, I want to start with 2 polling questions to learn a little bit more about the audience. So if you don't mind, you should be able to look at the right side of Attendify, and where Amy was showing you to where you can post comments, the 3rd tab on that right is the polling questions. So let's go ahead and click on polling questions, and let's take the first poll. So I will slide my polling results over while you guys start. So you should be seeing the question. Oh, you guys are fast. Have you been to a Knowledgeware conference in the past? Wow, it's a bit surprising. As they come rolling on in, I appreciate you guys taking the time to vote. It's really important so that we can see who's at the conference. Please get over there if you see it's on the right side, polling. I know there's a few more of you out there that haven't voted yet based on the number of people that are logged in. Okay, so we see, not what I predicted, but it's pretty heavy for first timers. And that is, I guess, a good sign of a growing community. We've got about almost a third of you in the other bins that have been either to a lot of conferences. So there's a fair number of those. Been to a few, but a lot of first timers as well. So that's really interesting to know. So let's go on to our next polling question, find out a little bit more about the audience. Brittany, if you can queue up the next question, I'm going to ask you to vote again. So get your fingers ready. How familiar are you with the Knowledgeware technique, to this concept that we call Knowledgeware? Ooh. So you either understand it completely and can apply, you're familiar but would like to learn more, or I've heard the term but not sure why it's important. Okay, those people answering C, I'm after you. We're gonna explain, I hope, in the next 2 days and hear from actual people who have gone through this journey why it's important, why it's beyond important, it's essential. And I believe the evidence has been accumulated now. It's no longer theoretical, and hopefully we can show you that, because I think it'll be important for those of you that are in that category as we move on. Okay, so about a little, pretty balanced between, some pretty strong practitioners, some people who understand it and want to know more, and a few of you that are coming probably with just, either your boss told you to come or you're just curious, and you need to see a little bit more evidence why it's so important. All right, well, thank you for taking those polling questions. So as I mentioned, my presentation is on the big and expanding picture of Knowledgeware. And I absolutely love giving this presentation every year. Hopefully it shows. I'm passionate about the topic of Knowledgeware. I tell people it's a little bit like you believe that you've seen the future and you're really, really eager to come back and tell everybody why it's going to make things better. And I feel like that's what we're doing. And hopefully we'll be able to provide the evidence for that for you guys. So Knowledgeware, I'm claiming, is a very big idea and one that's in your future. And like all big ideas, there's 2 things that have happened in the last year. The confirming evidence has been accumulating, and I'll be referring to this evidence that I'm talking about. And the concept itself is not static by any means. And the outer reaches of the vision continues to expand. And those of you that hear my spiel all the time, hopefully there's something new in today's presentation for you, because I'm going to talk a little bit about the new ways we're describing the Knowledgeware process and the new ways that we're showing value in the Knowledgeware process. So I'll be introducing that in today's presentation. So again, Knowledgeware is a big idea. I'm now confident in saying it's like CAD. It's like CAE. I remember, I'm old now, CAD, when I first got out of college, there were people who said, no, Mylar is not going to be replaced. CAD, the master, is not going to happen. CAE will not replace physical testing. right? These are things that we now take for granted. And it's my contention that managing knowledge in documents is not going to be the way the future is going to happen. There's a better process. It's very different than a document process. It's not just about replacing documents. It's about a whole thought model around how knowledge is managed. And I'm going to get into that. Okay, so I'm pretty heavy-handed. I believe that this process is inevitable. It won't be the afterthought that the current knowledge processes are. In the new process, knowledge will be measured as a key asset, and it'll be every process will be, well, where is the knowledge enablement? Not just certain processes, it'll be all processes. And again, I'm going to try to give you that evidence. Okay, so let's move on and kind of get with it. One of the key accomplishments of 2020 is the International Knowledgeware Organization and its board of directors have approved a new white paper that's intended not to be marketing at all. It's just meant to describe the essential elements of Knowledgeware. And in that white paper, there's a definition. And the definition is Knowledgeware is a comprehensive approach to continuously collect, deliver, and actively apply trusted knowledge within the flow of work. Now, there's a lot packed into that sentence, and I do think that maybe the definition will continue to evolve, but right now that's a really good definition. And I thank the IKA for working on the white paper and having this new white paper. Those of you who want to copy the white paper, feel free to reach out to Brittany or that info email that we discussed a little bit earlier that Amy talked about, and we'll get that white paper to you. Essentially, though, the way we talk about Knowledgeware when we're introducing it to new people is we say it's like the transition from paper maps to navigation. Paper maps being a metaphor for the documents of knowledge that we put into a virtual database or in a virtual library system. You know, it's copied, it's out of date, it's everything a person could possibly want. The lines and arcs on the map are just lines and arcs. They really don't convey information other than visually. Right? You can't do anything. You can't say someone's traveling on a road. But when we get into navigation, the difference is that the information itself has been changed. It's been put into units of know-how or units of knowledge that are provisioned. So I'm only seeing the map parts that are specific to where I am. And there's insights overlaid on top of that, like traffic and navigation, because the navigation system is collecting information from everybody else who's driving on that part of the road. This is an entirely different user experience and one that is universally accepted as being better than maps, right? It's been a game changer to have navigation. And what I'm suggesting is that the evidence is accumulating that this model no longer works, right? You can put the best search engine in front of a document space and it just burdens the user further. The more you find, the harder it is to sift through, to begin to find out what's useful, what's actionable, get rid of all the bloat, all the redundancy, all the decay, transient decay of knowledge. And it just doesn't work. And it never stays up to date, and it's in a perpetual state of decay. So the library metaphor of managing knowledge is going away. The documents, that as a formulation of knowledge, it just doesn't work. It's a dead end. So what's the alternative, right? So we're talking about Knowledgeware. We're talking about the idea of provisioning and some other interesting things. So the first thing that happens, it's very scary for the people who first see or hear of Knowledgeware, and ultimately it's not very scary at all, is that the bloat of documents go away and we manage unitized, durable, actionable, granular units of knowledge called knowledge packets. These are like the map tiles that can be provisioned and kept up to date. They're never copied because you're just provisioning digitally the latest. You don't have these copies that persist everywhere, and we call this a knowledge packet. So we're going to manage that, and we're going to use those to better understand. Instead of being lines and arcs on a paper, like a paper map, there are roads on a map that actually understands what it is. It's a road, and people are driving on it or not driving on it. It's a huge difference, and the value that's unlocked is tremendous. Okay, so I'm moving along fairly fast here, but conceptually, Knowledgeware is about these knowledge packets, okay? Another way to think about it, and this is a new slide, so hopefully those of you that are somewhat familiar will appreciate what I'm going to tell you here, and that fundamentally the Knowledgeware process is basically 4 steps. It's a cycle, 4 steps. So the first step is the capture and construct process. So this is creating the knowledge packets. Really importantly here is it's not like going and creating a bunch of documents and putting them on a shelf, okay? That's not what it is. It's really about capturing construction and construct for a purpose of communication. So I'll use the example that MS Teams and Slack had with getting rid of a lot of email as a means of communication. The chats in Teams and Slack is a more efficient form of real-time communication that organizes it better, makes it more useful. It's more convenient. People use that over a lot of email, right? And what I'm suggesting is that the knowledge packet as a means of capturing knowledge will replace documents as a means of communicating experience and expertise from knowledge holder to knowledge user. Now you don't have the separate knowledge process. You've got a communication process between a knowledge need and a knowledge have, and that communication becomes more efficient through knowledge packets. It's more real-time, it's more connected, it's more traceable, it's more visible, it's more measurable. And in the document world, you just can't have that, right? The next step of the knowledge process, because you have this durable unit of knowledge in the capture and construct, is we can provision it based on context. So like the map tiles, they're provisioned as they're needed. The knowledge packets are provisioned based on project style, project timing, discipline, and we can provision and make it more convenient for users to reuse knowledge. But it doesn't stop there. The next step is the activation of the knowledge within the workflow. When you have knowledge packets, we can activate them in a way that they track themselves, that they do work for the end user, right? And that's a huge thing versus looking at a document and then deciding what to do back in your context. The knowledge packets can be activated in a very real way. I invite you to come to the advanced session and you'll see Steve Boisert, one of our two Knowledgeware consultants, talk about integrating knowledge packets into CAD, where the knowledge packets are actually evaluating themselves in a modeling environment. It's a tremendous amount of work that's automated in that kind of process. But there are other ways. That's just one. But take a look at that presentation if you're interested in activation. Lastly, and more or less new in the last 2 years, is the ability to take the data about how the knowledge packet was applied, when, how long did it take, what status was it in the end, take that data and produce insights that then produce fodder for the capture and construct process. It becomes a closed loop learning model, and that's super important. I will be talking extensively about this learn and adapt in the third breakout session, in the advanced session, talking about how machine learning and AI will help us do that. So, and specifically some of the Auros features, how Auros accomplishes this knowledge-aware vision of capture, construct, provision, activate within the flow of work, use the data, learn to adapt, push and cause the creation and refinement of knowledge. Okay, so this is a new way of thinking about knowledge-aware. I'm going to go to another new way. This is called, this is an observation that we have. Another one of our two Knowledgeware consultants, Josh Cullis, when he's onboarding a new workflow for Auros, we find that what we don't do is take all the knowledge and start, put it into a knowledge base, as knowledge packets. We say, where's the decision points? Where is the process? Need knowledge. And we create those knowledge packets, and we start to create the demand pull for knowledge in the process. Now, there are ways to do that aren't available with documents. It's a little beyond this presentation. But what you see as an emergent property of knowledge-aware is that knowledge gets pulled through the process instead of pushed. And that is a massive difference. It does a lot of good things. Enables you to start small. It enables you to understand where the knowledge demand is, and it better enables you to understand how knowledge can enable a process. And again, this is through observation that this conclusion, that we can arrive at this conclusion. The last new observation on knowledge-aware is a significant one, and I call it the knowledge operating system observation. So what we see at customers that have been adopting the knowledge-aware technique, and hopefully specifically Auros solution for knowledge-aware, is that a knowledge operating system evolves. And the outcome of a knowledge operating system is that we get great systems consolidation. We get the number of IT systems that are knowledge enabling different processes get consolidated into one tool. So what does this mean? So what it means is if you take a look at an operating system on your laptop, everybody's familiar with this, right? Or on your cell phone. The operating system performs core functions that make applications be much more efficient and much more consistent, right? So your operating system on your laptop, it has services that help an application use the monitor to display information, to use the keyboard, to take in information, to print, to put and retrieve data from a hard drive, etc. Can you imagine if every application on your cell phone or on your laptop had to write its own services to do these things? How mind-bogglingly inefficient would that be? But yet that's what we're doing from a knowledge enablement standpoint. So what I'm suggesting to you is that the knowledge-aware process and this technique creates, by a byproduct, not intentionally, but it just evolved that way, create a knowledge operating system. These services are available to knowledge enable existing processes that you have. The knowledge capture part, a much better, higher ordered form of knowledge capture, knowledge packets. The ability to apply and track. There's a whole toolkit for creating assessments and tracking values and tracking data, how it gets used, where it gets used. The provisioning mechanisms, this context matching tools, those are services in the Knowledgeware process. To monitoring the quality, the health of the knowledge itself, those kinds of services. Interfaces to external applications. So instead of having a knowledge base for lessons learned in manufacturing, instead of having a knowledge base for design criteria to be evaluated in a design review, instead of having a supplier quality evaluation matrix and capability matrix as a knowledge base, with these services, you can knowledge enable the existing processes without having standalone tools and thereby getting this consolidation. So this knowledge operating system is an important concept because if you're trying to understand where the value is, sometimes cost avoidance is hard to enumerate, to calibrate, but systems consolidation is straightforward. You spend $50,000 a year on that system, $75,000 on that system, bam. There you save the cost of business. So another way to think about knowledge operating system is to understand the knowledge flow model at the enterprise level that we introduced last year's conference. I'll go over it quickly here, is that the modern enterprise is model-based. Digital models consume digital models, and have documents trying to feed these things is impossible. So you wind up coding and programming in each of these modeling environments. Not efficient. Right? But there's this whole bit of knowledge flow of interaction that you want to have interact with these digital models. The first is requirements. Most people fundamentally understand requirements slowdown. It's a pretty straightforward process. If you're a systems engineer, you know this cold, right? You start with a high-level requirement, break it down to the next level of engineering requirement, and so forth. But requirements engineering typically never gets very far down the engineering process. It's because what happens is there's a natural, less understood process of flow-up. How do we do? The Navy can specify the shipbuilder needs to, construct its hull in certain ways, okay? But only a shipbuilder knows how to meet those objectives. That's all the knowledge of flow up. That's why a supplier, tier one supplier in the automotive supply base makes brakes and not say, body parts, right? Because they have a knowledge base to meet the requirements that an OEM would have. This is the flow-up process. It's not well understood, but with knowledge aware, it becomes an integral and well understood process. I'll introduce also this concept of flow-in, right? And we have a presentation tomorrow from the American Bureau of ABS, American Bureau of Shipbuilding, and they provide standards to the shipbuilding industry, how ships need to be classed. So all industries have external standards that influence their processes. And here's just a good way to understand and make common the way knowledge is going to be presented to the processes for knowledge enablement of all the different processes on the right. So what we really want to have is some kind of coherent stream of knowledge to be able to connect these flows to the digital enterprise, not one-offs. We want a coherent stream of reliable knowledge ready for reuse that's trusted. And then what becomes available to us is the data of how the knowledge gets consumed, which allows us to do the flow back, this learning part, right? Adapt and learn from the data, how much knowledge was applied, what knowledge was conforming, how long did it take. These kinds of data then feeds machine learning that will allow us to feed the flow up process to create new knowledge. So to create an enterprise model that will give you, the knowledge operating system, you need services that can handle all these kinds of flows. and create a coherent stream of knowledge, right? And so it's not a point-specific solution. It's an enterprise capability like a knowledge operating system that provides the services that allows you to enable any process. Okay, so I'm down to a minute here before we get into questions and answers, and I got this slide for you. This is Auros Knowledge Systems. This is a slide that I'm personally very proud of. One of our Knowledgeware consultants on the upper right, Josh Cullis, he's up there with his quotation. But basically, we decided 2 years ago that we're going to be knowledge enabled. We're going to be knowledge aware, right? And what does that mean? In the last year, we really took off. And we were able to not have JAMA for our software requirements or pick a different software requirements. We were able to not have Appable to do our information security management stuff that we're required to have to be able to provide hosting services for defense-oriented companies, for example, or basically anybody. All the information security management stuff, incident response, business continuity, risk control, all those things, we would have needed a tool. No, Auros does that better than Appable does. And on strategy for strategic goal setting and things like that for our company, all done through a single tool, right? So we're avoiding $54,000 annual software costs ourselves. We currently have at a minimum of 32 distinct workflows knowledge enabled through the Knowledgeware process. So our software factory is that. We've shrunk from 16 months to 3-month design cycles. Our information security management system, all knowledge enabled. You can read them all. 32, I think the number is actually much higher. We have 10,000 knowledge packets published in active, not total, published in active. Oops, my timer just went off. And we have 40 distinct users, and we have approximately 1,000 knowledge events a day. Knowledge units of durable, actionable, reusable knowledge being tracked and provisioned and used each day. So that's quite a story. So this is our own journey to becoming knowledge aware. So with that, hopefully, I'm passionate about the topic. I'm a believer. I'm seeing more and more people become believers. I think that trend is going to accelerate. You guys get to decide for yourselves. So with that, we have a few minutes for questions, and I'd be happy to take them as they come up through the Attendify interface.
Yes, thank you so much, Jeff. And just verifying you can hear me, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay, great. I refreshed my screen. I saw some of your comments. I know Dave and Darren said they had to actually connect from their personal PCs, that the company work network was making them have some audio issues. So definitely refreshing is a message. And I see that that was suggested as well, to just refresh that screen or log out and log back in. Okay, so like Jeff said, if you have any questions for him, now is the time to go ahead and type them into that chat window. Now, if no one has any questions, then you'll have some time before the next session. Let's see, that one's going to be at 1:45. But let's go ahead and give a moment to see if anybody decides they want to ask something, or maybe Jeff, you can think of something like a commonly asked question that.
Well, I think most people have a fear that it looks like a big change, and I think that if people go to the customer presentations, if you're new to the topic, you'll find that it's not a tremendously hard process. It does take time, but the process itself is not hard. It's a progression, and the best time to plant a tree is today. That's right.
You got it. Brittany says, great presentation. So
didn't have to say that.
It's good feedback. Thanks, Brittany. We appreciate you communicating with us. And
I think we can let everybody go to the next section.
Yeah, absolutely. So before you go, I actually had to refresh my screen. So what I'm going to do quick is paste this survey link into the chat window for you all, because we'd love for you to take a survey at the end of each session. So I'm working on doing it here. Just give me a second. Sorry, I had it all set to go before I refreshed my screen. So here we go. So please fill out the survey. Just take a second. I just pasted the link in there. And if you do think of a question later for Jeff, you can just contact him directly, right? All right. 2 thumbs up from Jeff. All right. So now I guess you do have a few minutes. You can take a 10-minute break. Up next, though, let me tell you what it is. Jeff Mayhew, Chief Engineer at Navistar, on Auros at Navistar, observations on Knowledgeware. Okay, so just go to the schedule tab and click on the next session for 1:45, and we'll see you over there. Thank you. All right.